Okay. All right. So today I kind of want to start off with going over what will be on the big test next week. So next week we're going to have a test over pretty much everything that we've covered up to this point in the semester. Um, so it's going to be quite a bit, but I don't want you guys to feel too overwhelmed. I probably will take almost everything from hold on just one second. I'll probably take almost everything from lessons 9 up through this lesson, so 9 through 18. And then I'll just take a little bit from the lessons before that, mainly just the words that I think that you'll use in everyday conversation or everyday reading. So most of the test is going to be over things that you've learned in the second half of the semester, starting around March or so. So I do want to go over some of the things that are definitely going to be on it. So definitely you are going to see many, many prefixes and roots because again, this is an etymology class and I want you guys to be sure that you have a good grasp on etymology and that you can recognize these words in the future, recognize these prefixes and roots in the future so that hopefully you'll be able to increase your vocabulary very quickly. So at the end of the lesson from last week, which is of course the lesson that is what is for last week and this week, there is a really long list of words and prefixes and roots that we've learned. So all the words are back here too. As you can see, there's a lot of them. You guys should feel very proud of yourselves for learning this many words. I haven't gone through the trouble of counting them, but I would guess if this is about 25, then you've probably learned, let's see, 50, 100, 150, 200, 250, 300, 350, 350 words just from this, and then probably, I would say, about 150 prefixes and roots. So very, very admirable. Now, I don't expect you guys to remember every single prefix and root that we learned and every single everything, but I think you guys will be surprised by how much you do remember from what we've learned. So in the back here is an index of all the prefixes and roots that we learned in this book. We did have another book, but to be honest, most of the prefixes and roots are the same through both of them. And so we have a, which is a negative prefix, add, to, toward, etc. So you can look through these. I would probably read through them once or twice just to make sure that you have a good grasp on them. Make sure that there are no large holes in your knowledge. And again, a lot of them are going to be very familiar. We've gone over nihil quite a bit. Some of them are going to be a little bit tougher, like we just learned hippos last week, I think, and so some of them are going to be new as well, but just do your best. I won't quiz you over the really obscure ones. Like Satyr, I probably won't do that one. I'll probably just quiz you over the ones that I think you're going to find on a regular basis in words in the real world. And then here's the rest of them here. Okay, so basically what I do want you to remember are the prefixes and roots, the words that you learned along with them, but if you know the prefixes and roots, you probably will be able to define the words as well. Like, for example, here was one of the words that we had early on, triskaidekaphobia. Do you guys remember what this word meant?
Like afraid of the number 13.
Yeah, exactly. Afraid of the number 13. And we got that from phobia, which is fear, plus tri, which is 3, and then deca, which is 10. So literally 3 plus 10, the fear of 3 plus 10, which is 13. Very good. So a lot of these words you're going to be able to get no problem. So that'll be this part of the test, the etymology one. We will also be going over, oh, do we have Alice here yet, guys? Nope. Still no, huh?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. All right. Well, let me see. She didn't email me yet, so she might not be coming to class today. That's okay. She's usually pretty faithful about being here. Okay. So as far as the other things that I will expect you to know, I will be quizzing you over some of the other words that we've learned. Here are the words that had to do with language. So archaic, jargon, argot, pidgin, connotation, semantics, etc. So I will be quizzing you over that. It'll be matching though, so hopefully not too difficult. I might give you a few words to quiz you over denotation and connotation. Do you guys remember the difference between the two of them?
The denotation is like the definition of the word, like the one, and connotation is the one the society has like made of it.
Yeah, exactly. So the connotation of a word could be different between society and society. I mean, it could also be different just from person to person. It depends on how a person grew up, basically. So I might quiz you a little bit over that. And I think that's all we'll take from this packet. Then from, let's see, the next lesson. We did go over the history of language, if you remember. Pretty interesting, but to be honest, I won't quiz you over this. It's just kind of information that you can know, so you know where it came from. Then we had a few words here. Some of these words we'll go over just briefly. The root ergon means work, like ergonomic, if you remember that one. Vig or viz, be lively, energetic. So we have rigorous, invigorate. Again, those are probably words that you're already familiar with, so it shouldn't be too hard. Then we have act, do, drive, or act, like prodigal, agitate, enact, reactionary, agile, allege. Okay, so those are probably all I'll get from this lesson. There were a few others, but I don't want you to stress out too much because we really didn't go over this very much at all. So if I take anything from this, it will definitely be words that I think you'll use in the future. So do go over these, but don't stress about them. I probably will only take maybe 10 words from these total. Okay. Then we have this, which I believe is just the etymology textbook that we work with, so you don't have to worry too much about that because, again, we'll be going over it. We'll be going over it in the etymology book today. So here we have communication, we have circumlocution, prattle, cogent, raconteur, discourse, sophistry, falter, utterance, literate, verbose. Do you guys remember what sophistry means and where it comes from? Any ideas? Comes from sophos, the root sophos. It's also where we get the word sophomore.
Is it like not wise?
Actually, sort of. So what does the root sophos mean? Do you remember?
Wisdom?
Yes, wisdom. So sophistry is actually, if you remember, using wisdom to deceive people, or basically something that sounds like it's wise, but it actually is meant to deceive or trick someone. So like a salesman might use sophistry in order to get someone to buy maybe a car that isn't in good condition. You have a politician who uses sophistry in order to get people to vote for him, that type of thing. Very good. Okay, and do you remember what circumlocution means and where that comes from?
Like using unnecessary words?
Yeah, well, sort of. That's what verbose means. Circumlocution, what does the prefix circum mean?
Around.
Good. And then loc or L-O-C?
Is it like speech?
To speak, yeah, exactly. Can any of you remember another word that comes from L-O-C or L-O-Q?
Wasn't there like locant or something like that? Or is that?
There's loquacious. Loquacious means talkative. There's also dialogue. It also comes from this root as well. So circumlocution is just talking around the subject rather than addressing it directly. There are also these words that we got from Spanish. An aficionado. Do you guys remember what an aficionado was?
A fan or admirer?
Yeah, exactly. And then do you remember what a peccadillo is? It comes from a Spanish word, and the Spanish word it comes from is pecado. pecado means sin, and so a pecadillo is like, it literally means a little sin. Basically, it's just a minor offense, nothing too serious, it's just something minor. So those will be all the words I get from this lesson. And then we have some words here. We went through a bunch this week. To be honest, I don't think I'm going to get very many words from this at all because we went. I feel like we went through too many words on the week that I did this one, and I don't think it would be fair to quiz you guys over all of them. So I'll probably pull maybe 10 from these, but don't worry too much about it. I'll mostly be getting the words from the other lessons. Then we have this one. So this one we read from Winston Churchill, and we went quite a bit through the etymology textbook. So I think you're good on this one. So I don't think that you need to look at this one too much. Again, this is lesson 15, so don't worry too much about lessons 14 or 15. Then we have this one, which I will probably pull quite a few from. So this one is when we did a lot of work with our other etymology textbook that we do sometimes. So for this one, we went over, I think it was 6 or 7 different roots. For example, we had gram or graph, which means to write, like calligraphy, cardiograph, hologram, monograph, seismograph, etc. Then we have this one here, hyper, which means too much or too far, like hyperbole. Hyperbole is literally meaning to throw too much or to overthrow something. So that's great exaggeration about a certain event or a certain story. Then we have here, this is just a review, but after that we had log, which we just talked about, means speech or word. It can also be spelled loq, L-O-Q. So that's where we get the word monologue, prologue, dialogue, epilogue. All those have to do with speaking in some way or another. Okay, then we had logi, which is the study of. And so you don't need to know any of the super obscure ones, just remember the main ones. Of course, you need to remember etymology. If you don't get that one right, that would just be a failure on my part. And then we have locu or loq, which again means to speak. We have mal, which means bad. Do you guys remember the prefix for good?
Bene.
Bene, very good. And so these are a review of all the prefixes up to there. You can definitely get some help from that if you need it. Then we have meter or metra, which means to measure. Most of the world uses the metric system, which actually makes a lot of sense. In America, we do not use the metric system. Okay. Then we have a few from this one: insular, insulate, idiosyncrasy, idiom, enumerate, enumerable, and then just a few on this one: nonplussed, surplus, plurality, single, and singular. Okay? All right, and that's pretty much it up until today's lesson. So today's lesson, again, is a lot of review. I think from pages, I want to say from pages 70, yeah, from pages 76 all the way to the end is just review, so you don't have to worry too much about that other than reading it. We might read a little bit of this today just as kind of a conclusion to the lessons, and so that you guys get a challenge as you are leaving to go your way and learn your own words. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back to what we were doing here. Oh, that's not what I was doing here. There we go. So let me go back to the page that I need here. All right. Oh, and also these words will be on there as well. We had these before: dogmatic, ponder, epiphany, postulate, pensive, rationality, philosophy, reverie, plausible, and stratagem. So those will be on there as well. Don't need to worry too much about them, but just do know that they will be on there. So let's go ahead and skip ahead. I didn't give you too much homework because, again, I wanted you to focus on being able to finish your work. Okay, so let's start with lesson 34. So lesson 34, okay, so we'll do some of this together, and then we're actually going to do some reading as well. Probably the last half of class we'll work on reading and trying to figure out vocabulary and context from reading passages. So first of all, we have include. So if you include something and you shut it in, so to speak, include is built on the Latin claudo, which means to shut, plus the prefix in, one of whose meanings, as you know, is in. So in means in, and ex means out. If include means to shut in, what would be the word that means to shut out?
Exclude.
Exclude, right. So if you exclude someone, you are literally shutting them out from, a group or anything like that. Very good. Okay, then we have number 2, blacks such as the absurdity of prejudice, were once blank from dining in many restaurants, the same restaurants possibly in which the chefs and waiters were black. What word would we put here?
Excluded.
Okay, good. All right, number 3, by a similarly twisted logic, our immigration laws once excluded from the U.S. various European and Asian nationals as undesirable aliens. So I heard a quote the other day that I thought was very, very astute, and it basically said, the United States is a group of immigrants who are focused on keeping people out of the country. So I thought it was interesting because everyone in the United States, of course, immigrated here at one point, unless you are a Native American, of course. And yet we still have a lot of prejudices against new immigrants. For a while, it was Irishmen. So Irish people were spat upon in the streets, and they were hated by a lot of people. And then when we got over hatred for Irishmen, people started to hate Asians who came into the country, and they were put into these horrible work camps and things like that. And then if it wasn't those, maybe it was black people, or maybe it was, pick a nationality, and now it seems to be Latino people are trying to be excluded from coming into the country because of prejudices that exist. So prejudices have existed for a long time. Unfortunately, they will continue to exist forever, and hopefully as our society progresses, they will become lower and lower. So the law in most states excludes young people from different events and also voting as well. So probably the most exciting thing that can happen to you when you turn 18 is your ability to vote. That's pretty amazing. And of course, hopefully you guys will never smoke. That's the other thing that up until a couple weeks ago you could do when you turned 18. And they just raised the smoking age up to 21, which I think is great because it will definitely lower the number of young people who smoke and I think affect the health of everyone in a positive way. So the noun form of include is inclusion. The noun deriving from exclude would be what?
Exclusion.
Exclusion, very good. And remember, what prefix does this come from?
X.
X, which means?
Out.
Out of, plus what?
Clues.
Clues or clued, which means, do you remember?
Shut.
Yeah, to shut or to close up. Very good. So the exclusion of certain minorities from Greek letter fraternities, country clubs, etc. is nowhere nearly as prevalent today as it was in the past, which is a good thing. So include changes to the noun inclusion to the adjective inclusive. Exclude changes from the noun, what was the noun again, guys?
Exclusion.
Exclusion, good. To the adjective what?
Exclusive.
Exclusive, right. So you might not have put that connection together that those two words are related. We usually think of exclusive like something that is very rich and you can't get in it unless you're also a rich person. But literally what it means is to shut out. So the people who are belong to exclusive clubs pride themselves on shutting people out of it, basically. So an exclusive private club or residential area tries to bar certain people who would offend the sensibilities of the current members or homeowners. So don't be such a snob. You shut out all the people less affluent, less educated, or less fortunate than yourselves. Translation, don't be so exclusive. Do you guys remember where affluent comes from? The word affluent?
Flu.
So if we were... What's that?
Flow.
Yes, exactly. It literally means to flow out. Now, what flows out of an affluent person? Or what flows freely in an affluent person's life?
Mean comments?
No. Okay, so an affluent person would be able to afford exclusive private clubs. That's a hint. You remember? So affluent means wealthy. So basically wealth flows out of them. So an affluent person constantly has wealth flowing in, basically. That's where it comes from, and flowing out, or flowing to them, basically. So that's where we get the word affluent, and it just means someone who is wealthy or rich. So if two terms such as hot and cold or vegetable and mineral are mutually exclusive, then one term shuts out another. So in other words, they contradict themselves. They are mutually exclusive. Those are two opposites of the same coin. Very good. Okay. Quick review here. The prefix in means
in,
and x means
out,
and then se means apart. So to separate something is literally to take it apart. When the southern states seceded just before the Civil War, they moved apart from the other states in the Union. Segregation amounts to herding certain things or people apart from the rest. And you should remember this word CEDE. Do you remember what that word means, or that prefix?
Like, to abandon or like go somewhere.
It means go, right? So it literally means to go apart if you secede someone. Now, do you remember the word that means to go or to replace or to go above someone else? What was the word that meant to go above someone else?
Succeed?
Actually, that's a good guess. That's a really good guess. The word I was thinking of is supersede. So supersede means literally to take the place of. But it has the literal definition of to go above. So when you supersede someone, it's literally like you're taking their place above them, essentially. So to shut in is to include, and to shut out is to exclude, and to shut apart is to what? So what would it mean to shut apart? Remember, what does the sorry, go ahead.
Separate.
Well, if we're trying to include the shutting part of it, what's the root for to shut?
Clude.
Clude. And then what's the prefix for apart?
See?
Yeah. So it'd be seclude. If you seclude yourself in a mountain retreat, you are not likely to meet many people. You have deliberately shut yourself apart from the mainstream of humanity. So that's what seclude means, is to shut yourself apart. A secluded spot is a quiet and private, apart or away from the bustle and traffic of human living, a spot in which you can be alone and invite your soul. Include is a verb, and the noun form is inclusion. The adjective inclusive. Exclude is a verb, the noun form is exclusion, and the adjective exclusive. Similarly, seclude is a verb, and so what would be the noun form?
Seclusion.
Seclusion, good. And the adjective?
Seclusive.
Seclusive, very good. So that's definitely a word to know that comes up quite a bit in just everyday conversation, so keep that one in mind. Good? So no matter how much you like people, occasionally you enjoy a bit of what?
Seclusion.
Seclusion, right. We need the noun form here. People who like to keep to themselves, apart from others, who prefer solitude and quiet to friendships and partying. Such people have what kind of personalities?
Seclusive.
Seclusive personality, good. So we've talked about this one before, this idea of wanting to be apart from people doesn't make you necessarily misanthropic. You might just have a seclusive personality. You might just need alone time. Why do you avoid people? Another way to put it, why so what?
Seclusive.
Seclusive, very good. Seclusive. Okay, excellent. So you know that the prefix pre means before. A presentiment is a feeling that something will happen before it actually does. To precede is to come or go before something or someone. A prefix is that part of a word that comes before the word, and prejudice is a judgment made before you know the facts. So to shut something off before it happens is to do what?
Preclude.
Preclude, exactly. So to preclude any misunderstanding, make your meaning crystal clear. So preclude means to shut off before it happens. It's kind of, think of it like you see, a angry dog running toward you. In order to preclude it from attacking you, maybe you should jump over the fence so that it doesn't get to you. So to preclude means just to stop something from happening before it actually happens. So to preclude escape by prisoners, penitentiary walls are high, guards are armed, and cells are barred. Somehow a number of convicts get out nonetheless. So leave a light burning in a room facing the front of the house when you leave on vacation. This may preclude the possibility of a watchful burglar thinking your home is vacant. Then following previous noun patterns of include, exclude, and seclude, write the noun form of preclude, which would be what?
Preclusion.
Preclusion. And then the adjective form would be?
Preclusive.
Preclusive, exactly, which is definitely not a word that's used very often. Okay, driving at or below the speed limit is an excellent what against receiving traffic citation? Would we use the verb, the noun, or the adjective form here?
Preclusion.
Very good. We use the noun form, exactly. Good. And then defensive driving on freeways and turnpikes will likely be quite blank of traffic accidents.
Preclusive.
Preclusive. Good. Excellent. Okay, let's do a little bit of review here, and then we'll go on to reading after this chapter. So Latin in means?
Inside.
In or inside. Good. Claudo?
Shut.
Good. To shut in?
Include.
Include. Latin ex?
Out.
Out. To shut out?
Exclude.
Exclude. Good. Latin se?
Apart.
Apart. And then to shut apart?
Seclude.
Seclude. Very good. So Latin pre means?
Before.
A feeling beforehand.
Preclude.
Not preclude.
Oh, preclusion.
No. Presentiment. Presentiment. Because remember the feeling part of it, sentio, means feeling. That one is kind of thrown in to trick you a little bit. So to come or go before, that one is preclude. Preclude. A judgment made beforehand.
Preclusion.
If you judge someone before you know them. Lydia, what'd you say? Yeah, prejudice. Very good. Prejudice. And then to shut off beforehand literally means?
Preclude.
Preclude. Good. And to go apart?
Seclude.
Well, seclude meant to shut apart. To go secede. Very good. Like the South seceded from the Union. And then a herding of people or things apart from others. This is kind of what happened to African Americans in the Civil Rights era. Segregation. This word would be segregation. And then part of a word that comes before the root.
Prefix.
Prefix, correct. Very good. So Latin claudo, spelled clued in English, means to do what?
Shut.
To shut, good. The prefix ex, of course, means out of, and then se means?
Apart.
Apart, and pre means?
Before.
Before, very good. Good. Skip down here where my mouse is. A man who is a recluse has shut himself back from the rest of the world. Remember, re means back or again. He deliberately lives a solitary life, perhaps for religious contemplation, just as likely because he has decided to withdraw from the noise and bustle and unbearable pressures of civilization. Good. So the word recluse is built on the Latin clausus, which means to
shut.
Plus the prefix re, which means
again.
Back or again. Good.
Okay.
So a monk is a religious what? A monk is a person who lives on their own. They usually don't marry anyone.
Reclusion?
No, just recluse, yeah.
Recluse.
But you have the right idea. Yeah, so a recluse is a person who lives alone. Incidentally, there's also something called a recluse spider. A recluse spider is awful. That's one of the few spiders that is dangerous that I've been bitten by. I used to live in the countryside, and in the country we had lots and lots of spiders, and most of them were pretty harmful. But if you're bitten by a recluse spider, you have to go to the hospital, actually, because it's a very, very serious bite. So the recluse spider is called that because they hide under things. That's what makes them so scary. So they hide under things. They don't like being out in the open, and if they're disturbed, that's when they bite you. Number 31. A blank lives in complete seclusion. Who would live in complete seclusion? A recluse. So a recluse would live in complete seclusion because they live, again, by themselves, apart from society. They're not interested in being around people. So some eccentric recluses may live in stringent poverty, yet occasionally when they die, bank books, stocks, and bonds and uncashed dividend checks amounting to thousands of dollars are found among the litter and dirt of their hovels. The root claustro, which is a variant of claudo and clausus, is found in claustrophobia, which is an abnormal dread of being shut up in a confined place. Do either of you ever experience claustrophobia?
No, not really.
No? Okay. I don't usually, but it can be kind of scary sometimes when you're in too tight of a space, basically. Good. So victims of claustrophobia go into a panic if they find themselves in a very small room. They have the feeling that the walls are rushing in to crush them. Number 35, a narrow, windowless corridor, the confined elevator of a small apartment house, the crush of humanity in a New York subway car. All these things will send someone who suffers from claustrophobia into a wild panic. So phobia, of course, means what?
Fear.
Fear, exactly. So most otherwise normal people who can face the everyday visible dangers of modern living without a qualm or second thought have one or two secret phobias. For no explainable reason, they dread heights or wide open spaces, or foreigners, or snakes, or cats, or certain foods, or high-pitched sounds. Do either of you have any phobias that you have? Not necessarily something that you're deathly afraid of, but something that you're a little bit afraid of?
Heights.
Heights. Oh, that's called agoraphobia. Agoraphobia is the fear of heights. How about you, Matthew?
I think of heights too, yeah.
I wasn't afraid of heights until I went to the Grand Canyon, and they have this thing that you can walk out on. It's a kind of a glass cage, basically, and you look straight down, and it's like you're floating in air, and it's the craziest feeling, like you're going to fall at any second. It was really, really terrible. But it was pretty amazing, but I never was afraid of heights before that moment. And then in that moment when I thought, oh no, if this glass breaks, I would fall to my death, that was the first time I've ever been truly afraid of heights. But I'm deathly afraid of snakes. If I see a snake, even on television, I'll have to leave the room. I just have a horrible phobia of them. So to form the adjective of phobia, you drop the IA and substitute IC. So the adjective of phobia would be what?
Phobic.
Phobic, exactly. So phobic personalities tend to have a great number of such irrational fears. Unless they become recluses, they have to spend an inordinate amount of time and energy avoiding the many things, places, and people that they dread. Phobic personalities might find themselves on the verge of a panic in the midst of any wide open space. So they suffer from agoraphobia that combines the Greek agora, the marketplace, with phobia. Basically, they don't like large spaces. Very large rooms devoid of people or furniture terrify the victim of agoraphobia. So agoraphobia would be the opposite of what phobia, guys?
Claustrophobia.
Yes, exactly. It'd be the opposite of claustrophobia because they're afraid of tight spaces. Agoraphobic people are afraid of very large spaces. So if blank people have a morbid dread of heights, they suffer from agoraphobia, a term that combines acros with phobia, acrophobia, which is, phobic people should have been the answer here. But acrophobia means fear of heights. So you guys would both suffer from acrophobia. So the observation tower of the Empire State Building is the last place to which you could entice a victim of acrophobia. Even the fifth rung of the ladder is too high for comfort. So if you are afraid of crowds or other confining spaces, you would be what? You would have what kind of fear?
Claustrophobia.
Claustrophobia, good. Too much open space would make you what kind of phobia?
Agoraphobia.
Agoraphobia. And then if you are afraid of heights, you have?
Acrophobia.
Acrophobia. Good, good. Let's see. Okay. Let's see. The word they're looking for here, cloistered. Cloistered just means sheltered from the world, basically. Okay. Another quick review here, guys. Claudo or clausus?
Shut.
Shut. Latin re.
Back.
Good. One who shuts himself or herself back from the world.
Recluse.
Recluse. Any abnormal fear.
Phobia.
Phobia. Fear of confined places.
Claustrophobia.
Good. Agora.
Market.
Market. Good. Dread of wide open spaces.
Agoraphobia.
Agoraphobia. Good. Greek acros. I think it means tall, but actually I have forgotten myself. Let's see. Yeah, top. Sorry, top. So acros means top. Dread of heights.
Acrophobia.
Acrophobia. A place of religious seclusion is cloister, and to shut yourself away would be cloistered. Good. Okay, excellent. Session 35, I think, is just review. So you guys can do that for homework. Then we have, it looks like more review here, which again will just help you on your studying as well. I'm not going to make you do all of this. Of course, since it's the last lesson especially, I don't want you to stress too much. So I will tell you that the words that are on here are not necessarily the words that you're going to be quizzed over, but it wouldn't be a bad idea to do this. In fact, let's just do a little bit ourselves and see how we can do. Let's see if we can get all of them correct. So starting at the top here, time and time again, occurring year after year.
Perennial.
Very good. Excellent. We're off to a good start. Good. Two-sided.
Bilateral.
All right. 2 for 2. 150th anniversary.
Sesquicentennial.
I'll give you credit for it. Yeah, sesquicentennial. Good. Good. 300th anniversary.
Tricentennial.
Very good. Exactly. Excellent job. We're 4 for 4. All right. Accurate timepiece or a measurer of time.
A clock.
I don't think that they're going for clock here, but I honestly can't remember what this word is either. An accurate timepiece, a measure. Okay, so measure is meter plus time, which is chronos. So what would that be?
A chronometer.
There you go. Woo, I'll count that one. Good. One with an outgoing personality. So out, what's the prefix for out?
X.
What's a person who is very outgoing? They like talking with people. You remember this one? It literally, I'll give you a hint. It literally means to turn outward. You got it.
Extrovert.
Extrovert. Very good. Excellent job. To get something done without delay. You can pick this shipping option on Amazon. They'll say, do you want it in 2 weeks or do you want this kind of shipping? Really fast, getting it done fast.
Express.
You guys are so close. It's expedient, but I'll give you. Actually, no. You're right. Actually, I'm the one who's wrong here. Expedite, because we need the verb. I was looking at the adjective. Very good. Practice of using long words, 1.5 foot long words. So what's 1.5?
Oh, sesame.
And then this is literally meaning 1.5 feet long. What's the prefix for foot?
Ped.
So sesquiped. Do you remember the rest of this? You can do it. Sesquiped. Sesquipedalian. I'll give you this one too because this one's a hard word, and it was way back at the beginning of the semester that we went over this. Okay, to put obstacles in the way of.
Impedite.
Okay, so it does have. You got the first half of it right. It's just impede. So, do you know where this word comes from? Impede comes from im, which means what?
You mean like stop or?
Yeah, or it means not, or to block. And then ped means foot. So impede is literally to put something in the way of the foot. So a job with little responsibility and good pay. Hold on, I have to think of this one too, guys. So a job with, I remember talking about this. I think it has to do with the root sol, but I don't remember. Let me think of this for a second. I might have to come back to this one. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure about this one off the top of my head. Okay. I was trying to search for it online and I can't find it. Okay, I'll come back to this. So we'll call this 9 out of 10 so far. So we're not doing too bad. One whose personality is turned inward.
Introvert.
Introvert, very good. Express clearly and directly. Do you remember? It's EX. It's literally to put out there. Do you remember the root for to put? Or to place? Try not to give you too many hints here.
Oh, explicit.
Explicit. Very good. Good. Excellent. Expressed indirectly.
Implicit.
Implicit. Very good. Okay. Fluent in 2 languages.
Bilingual.
Bilingual. Good. Let me move the screen down. Okay. To cut in 3, usually equal parts. So the word for cut.
Oh, no.
No, in this case, it's actually to, if you double something, what's another word for double it? To duplicate. So what would to cut it in 3 be?
Triplicate.
Yeah, triplicate. Good. A 3-legged stand.
Tripod.
Tripod. Very good. Person who has reached the age of 100. It's not as hard as you're thinking.
Centennial.
Yeah, centennial. Yeah, it's the same as an anniversary for something. A foot doctor. So what's the root? What's the root for foot?
Head.
Head. Good. Good. So what would a foot doctor be?
Head.
This one is actually in this case it's spelled differently. It's podiatrist. Podiatrist is a foot doctor. A figure with 5 angles or sides.
Pentagon.
Pentagon, very good. Figure with 8 angles or sides.
Octagon.
Figure with 10 angles.
Decagon.
10-year period.
Decade.
Decade. A composition of 8 musicians. So what's 8? Octagon. Oh, you know what, guys? I just remembered. No, not an octagon. Sorry. An octet is what it's called. Octet, which is the same as like a duet, a quartet. Octet is with 8. And I just remembered the word that we couldn't get before. This one, a job with little responsibility and good pay. I'll give you a hint. It comes from the prefix, which means without, plus the root that means care. Do you remember what the root that meant care was? For example, when you take care of your hands, what is that called? If you go to get a... Do you remember the word for going to take care of your hands, or you go to take care of your feet? You might go to a nail salon or something to get a... What's that word called?
Manicure.
Yeah, a manicure. So what's the root for care?
Cure.
Cure. And then do you remember the root for without? Sinecure. Sinecure. So a sinecure was a job with little responsibility but good pay. It literally means without a care. Without a care. Okay, very good. You guys are doing great so far. All right, we won't go through all of them. We'll just go through, I think, the first 50 here. So handwriting.
Calligraphy.
Calligraphy, technically, right. It could also be cursive as well, although cursive is a different word. A 70-year-old person.
Something.
This one I actually have to look up too. Oh, okay. This one I would not have gotten, so I don't blame you guys either. Septuagenarian. That one's tough. So an 80-year-old person would be what?
Octogenarian.
Octogenarian, right. A 90-year-old person?
Nonagenarian.
Nonagenarian, good. Oops, whoa, sorry, I went too far ahead here. Okay. Cast down in spirit. It literally means to throw down, someone who feels thrown down. So what's the prefix for down? Starting with a D.
D.
Yeah, D-E. And then what's the root for throw?
Ject.
Ject. So what's cast down in spirits?
Deject.
Dejected, right. Dejected. Good. Requiring or involving in sitting?
Sit.
So a job that requires a lot of sitting would be considered what kind of job? It starts with the root, which means sit, which is sed.
Sedious?
Sedentary. Do you remember this word now? So if someone lives a sedentary life, it basically means that is, they do most of their job sitting. To throw out?
Eject.
Eject, very good. To get words in? In is what? In, of course.
In.
And then to throw words in would be?
Inject.
Inject, very good. To refuse, to accept, or to throw back?
Reject.
Reject, right? Good. Serious, proper, dignified. This one I'm not sure about, so we'll skip that one. To take the place of, to make. Oh, this one we just went over earlier in today's class. So it's literally to take the place over someone. So what's the prefix for over?
Super.
Super, right?
Oh, supersede.
Supersede. Very good job, Matthew. Excellent. An intense preoccupation with something, constantly on one's mind. If you're constantly thinking about something, what would you call that thing? It would be I'll start it off for you guys. This is definitely a word that I know you guys know. Obsession. Oh, sorry. I think you were about to say it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay.
I know. Sometimes you get to thinking too hard, and then it's difficult. Philosophy that is all for nothing, that nothing has any value.
Nile free.
That was an excellent guess. It's actually nihilism, but really close. You got the right prefix for it. Nihilism is a belief in nothing, basically. Descriptive of writing or language or style that is slow, labored, dull.
Pedestrian.
Oh, yeah. It could be pedestrian. It could also be prosaic. That one's good. To become reduced in force or intensity. So this is the opposite of supersede. Well, sort of. It's sort of the opposite. So what would the opposite of super be? If super means above or over?
Sub.
Sub. If water goes back down, if it once was very high and then it goes back down, what do we say about the water? It has...
Subducted?
Neither one of those. It's subside, actually. Subside. So if something subsides, it goes back. Steadily and diligently applying oneself to a task. Remember the word for diligent? This word you should know. We've had this a few times. Starts with A-S. Diligent or assiduous?
Assign.
It would be assiduous in this case. To destroy completely.
Annihilate.
Good. Annihilate. Good. And then working subtly for evil purposes, suddenly springing a trap. I'll give you a hint. It starts with INS.
Insidious.
Insidious. Right, you're close. Insidious. Excellent job. Okay, let's just do up through 50, so we'll just do a few more here. Responding pleasurably to stimulation of the senses. So anything that you can feel. What was the root for feel?
Sense.
So sensual. Good. A feeling that something is about to happen or it will happen. Presentiment, right? To express feelings or opinions contrary to those expressed by the majority of people.
Dissent.
Dissent.
Dissent. To agree.
Assent.
Assent, good. Capable of feeling. So like a human or an animal, these are all examples of this kind of creature.
Sensibility.
Just sentient. Sentient just means it's alive, it's able to feel. Feeling hurt or angry or offended. If you feel, resent, very good. Or resentful, I think in this case. Pertaining or referring to the 5 senses.
Senses.
This is, what would this word be? I'm not sure what this one is. Maybe they're going for, maybe this one is not sensual. Either way is something like that. Romantic or tender in feelings. So if you feel something or sentimental, right? And then friction, discord, or conflict. Sorry, friction, discord, or conflict in feelings within a group. So that would be the noun form of number 44. Dissension. Very good. Dissension. All right. Excellent job, you guys. I don't know if we got all 50 out of 50, but I'll give you guys maybe 40 out of 50. You did pretty good on that one. So if you want to do the rest of these up through 100 for homework, you can. Oh, here are the answers. By the way, I just noticed that all these words are here. But that's okay. We did pretty good even without that. All right. So let's go ahead and move on to do a little bit of reading just to kind of end on a positive and interesting note, and then I will let you guys go. Okay, so over here, this is 2 different philosophies we're going to talk about. So one of them is by a man named Jean-Jacques Rousseau, and the other one is by a man named Thomas Hobbes. Are either of these names familiar to you guys?
No.
That's okay. So these are both philosophers who lived around the same time, and they both had different views of the ideal civilization. So we're going to read a little bit of Rousseau and then a little bit of Hobbes, and I want to see if you guys can tell what the difference is in their philosophy, what the major difference is in their philosophy. So let's start with paragraph 2 here. So I don't know if you guys can see it. I'll try to make it a little bit bigger. Is that too big? That might be too big. Yeah, let me make it a tiny bit smaller. Okay. Can you guys see this a little bit, if I consider?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So Matthew, can you take this first paragraph here, and then Lydia, I'll have you read the next one.
If I consider the natural state of man in a word, such as he must have issued from the hands of nature, I see an animal less strong than some, and less active than others, but upon the whole the most advantageously organized of any. I see him satisfying the calls of hunger under the first oak, and those of thirst at the first rivulet. I see him laying himself down to sleep at the foot of the same tree that afforded him his meal, and behold, this done, all his wants are completely supplied.
Right. So let's talk about what the word afforded means in this context. What does the word afforded mean in this context?
Gave him.
Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Yeah, basically. So what is Rousseau saying about in the natural state of man? What do you think she means by the natural state of man?
He gets things from nature.
Basically, it's man without civilization. So man just left to himself in the wild, basically. So he's saying, if I consider just the natural state of man, so just a person in the wild without any form of civilization. And how does Rousseau describe this type of man? What is he like? What does he say about him?
Everything is supplied in nature.
Yeah, exactly. So he doesn't have to worry about a whole lot. Pretty much everything is supplied in where he lives. So he's able to sleep at the same tree that gave him his meal. So basically, and behold this done, behold him being fed, him sleeping, he is able to satisfy or supply all of his wants, essentially. Okay, Lydia, go ahead and read the next paragraph.
The earth left to its own natural fertility and covered with immense woods that no hatchet ever disfigured, offers at every step food and shelter to every species of man and of animals. Men, dispersed among themselves, observe and imitate their industry, and thus rise to the instinct of beasts, with this advantage that whereas every species of beasts is confined to one peculiar instinct, man, who perhaps has not any particular belongings to him, appropriates to himself those of all other animals, and lives equally upon most of the different aliments which they only divide among themselves, a circumstance which qualifies him to find his subsistence with more ease than any of them.
Right, so a few words here which you might not know. So first of all, appropriates to himself those of all other animals. Let's actually, first before we do this, I'm going to erase this for a second. Before we do this, I want us to find what's the subject and verb of each of these, basically. So first of all, here, basically, earth is the subject and left is the verb. So earth, left to its own, actually no, I'm sorry, that's not the verb. So earth is the subject, and then we have left to its own natural fertility and covered with immense woods that no hatchet ever disfigured, offers at every step food and shelter to every species of animals. So basically, this whole phrase is something called a participle phrase, so we kind of ignore it and we just look at everything. So the earth, which earth is it? The one that's left to its own natural fertility and covered with immense woods, etc. So what is it talking about? What earth is this talking about? Is it the one that we live in?
No.
No, definitely not. Why not?
Because this one doesn't, it's not left to its own natural fertility and covered with immense woods.
Yeah, exactly. And also,
yeah,
lots of hatchets have disfigured it, meaning we've cut down lots of trees, we've built lots of buildings, etc. So Rousseau is saying that the earth, if it is natural like this, it offers everything that we could possibly need to every species of animals, which is probably true. The earth has plenty to offer us if we just kind of leave it to its own device. Then we have another subject, men, and then another interrupting phrase, dispersed among them, observe and imitate their industry. So dispersed among them is talking about the earth, by the way. Sorry, I'm not very good at drawing straight lines, apparently. So men, what do? They observe and imitate their industry. The industry of who? Who is the there here?
Men.
Not men. In this case, it's referring back to animals. So basically here it says, dispersed among the animals, imitate their industry. So talking about, again, the animals industry. And what does industry mean in this context?
Life.
Yeah, like what they do, basically. So it imitates their usefulness and rise. So 3 things men do. They observe, imitate, and rise to the instinctive beast with this advantage. And what's the advantage? Whereas every species of beast is defined and confined to one peculiar instinct, man, who perhaps has not any that particularly belongs to him, he appropriates, and again, man is the subject here, man appropriates to himself those of all other animals and lives equally upon most of the different elements which they only divide among themselves. So what is it saying here? So what distinguishes us from animals? What can we do that animals can't?
Appropriate.
Mm-hmm. Well, yes, but it also says that man does not have any particularly that belongs to him. Basically, no particular instincts. Mankind does not have any instincts just naturally. We're born with some instincts, of course, but we don't have the instinct to hunt like a lion does, and we don't have the instinct to run and hide. I mean, we do in a sense, but it's different. It takes a different kind of place in our lives. So basically it's saying we don't have any of these particular instincts, but what do? We appropriate them. We appropriate them from other animals. So what do you think that means? What do you think appropriates means?
Like adapts them?
Yeah, exactly. Very good. Yeah, we take them to ourselves and we live equally among most of the different elements. In this case, it means supplies, which they only divide among themselves. A circumstance which qualifies him to find his subsistence with more ease than any of them. What does subsistence mean? It's like our sustenance, basically, everything that we need to live. Okay, let's read one more paragraph from Rousseau, and then we're going to go on to Hobbes here and see what Hobbes believes about humanity and mankind. So, let's see. Let's see. Okay, let's look here. This paragraph here, which kind of continues onto the 2-page. So here it says, the first man who, after enclosing a piece of ground, took it in his head to say, this is mine, and found people simple enough to believe him, was the true founder of civil society. If we're going to find the subject and verb here, man would be the subject. What would be the verb? It's quite a ways down. So the first man who took it into his head to say, this is mine, and found people simple enough to believe him. And then the main verb is was. So the first man was the true founder of civil society. So who was this first man? What did he do? What is Rousseau saying here?
He enclosed a piece of ground.
Yeah, and he said, this is mine. So he said he basically planted his flag in the ground and said, this is mine, and people around him were simple enough to believe him. He was the founder of civil society. What does civil society mean? What do you think this means?
Like not chaotic?
Yeah, well, sort of. It's basically civilization, or society as we know it. Then Rousseau says, how many crimes, how many wars, how many murders, how many misfortunes and horrors would that man have saved the human species, who, pulling up the stakes or filling up the ditches, should have cried to his fellows, be sure to not listen to this impostor. You are lost if you forget that the fruits of the earth belong equally to us all, and that the earth itself to nobody. But it is highly probable that things were now come to such a pass that they could not continue much longer in the same way. So, what is Rousseau saying would have stopped war and murder and hunger and everything else? What would have ended that? What would someone have had to do?
Say that like the earth is for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so in general, we got to move on to Hobbes really quick. But in general, what is Rousseau's opinion about civilization? Is he for it or against it?
Against it.
Against it.
He's very much against it, and he thinks that if left to our own natural state, that we will do good, basically. Now let's look at what Hobbes believes, and you can probably guess, basically. Let's see. Okay, so let's start here. Matthew, can you read this paragraph here? So that
in the nature of man we find three principles causes of quarrel. First, competition. Secondly, diffidence. Thirdly, glory.
Okay, so he says these are the three causes of quarrel. What does quarrel mean?
Like, fight.
Yeah, these are the three reasons why people fight. First is, like he says, is basically competition, essentially. The second for safety, and the third for reputation. So these are the reasons that we fight. For gain, for safety, and for reputation. I think if we thought about it, pretty much every fight that goes on in the world can be categorized into one of these categories. It's either for gain, for safety, or for reputation. So the first use violence to make themselves masters of other men's persons, wives, children, and cattle. The second to defend them, and the third for trifles, maybe a sword, a smile, a different opinion, or anything basically. Then here's where Hobbes's philosophy comes in. Lydia, can you read this? Hereby
it is manifest that during the time men live without a common power to keep them all in all, they are in that condition which is called war, and such a war as is of every man against every man. For war consisteth not in battle only or the act of fighting, but in a tract of time, wherein the will to contend by battle is sufficiently known, and therefore the notion of time is to be considered in the nature of war, as it is in the nature of weather.
Okay, so let's stop there for a second. So first of all, what does the word manifest mean? Hereby it is manifest. What is manifest? This might be a word you're not familiar with. It basically means to show. Hereby it is shown that during the time that men live without a common power. What do you think they're talking about when he talks about common power? What is the common power that exists in most part of the world? Or most countries of the world, I should say.
Like government?
Yeah, government. Basically someone to control people. So he's saying that if we live in a time when men are without a common power, basically, that people are in the condition which is called war, and that such a war is every man against every man. Now, so if you were going to summarize basically what Hobbes believes, what do you think Hobbes believes about civilization?
There should be someone in charge.
Yeah, and without someone in charge, what would happen to people?
People would be in war.
Yeah, people would be fighting all the time. And he says it's almost worse than a regular war because it's not organized. It would just be one person versus another constantly fighting. So the difference between Hobbes and Rousseau is that Rousseau thinks that naturally people are good, but that society corrupts us. Hobbes believes that naturally people are bad and society helps us. So, just for fun, where do you guys think that you stand on one or the other of these sides? Do you side with Rousseau or Hobbes? Or neither?
I agree more with Rousseau.
Ah, so you're an optimist. I like that. That's good. How about you, Matthew?
I think Hobbes.
I probably agree a little bit more with Hobbes, but I also think that the answer probably is somewhere in the middle. We do need a government and police to keep us in check, but for the most part, I think people are fairly good. Whether they'll do the right thing if left to their own devices, I'm not sure. All right, guys, so your homework is basically to do whatever you feel like you need to do to review for the test. So there will be a test next week along with a lesson. I'll send them in the same email. You can do them kind of at your own time, but I would like you to do the test because otherwise I'll probably be pestering you guys to make sure that you do it over the next few weeks so that you don't forget about it over the summer. And then, yeah, so I will either see you guys on that video next week, or if you have any questions at all or you ever need any help, please feel free to contact me. You guys have my email and my phone number, so you're welcome to do that at any time. All right, guys. Well, it's been so much fun. I'll see you in video tomorrow, so I won't get to say goodbye in person, but it's been a great class, and I really appreciate all your hard work. All right, guys. I will talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Oh, no problem. Bye-bye.